Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky coming on to talk to you about the transit of Pluto Retrograde in 2024 from May 2nd, 2024 until October 11th, 2024. This will be a few month transit, which I'm just now getting on to talk about as I feel like we're really starting to feel this here in June when I'm feeling it. I wanted to talk about this as this will be the final retrograde of Pluto that moves back into the sign of Capricorn. It will be totally in Aquarius after it leaves Capricorn this time. And I figured that we could all use a bit of reflection and hindsight and preparation as well for the meaning of this transit. If you guys are new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button below and turn on the bell notifications. Also, linked below is this channel's Patreon page where you can get weekly tea chats and other premium content. Very valuable and wonderful deals going on there. Definitely come check out this channel on Patreon as well, as this time that we're working on during Pluto retrograde is very important for really bringing about a final understanding of our sort of like character arc as people, and our own rites of passage will be something that we have to really look at during this transit. So it's a wonderful time for this type of content. As a creator of this kind of content, I am feeling super lucky and super thrilled actually to be working in this vicinity of creation, because it is such a powerful time for reflection, contemplation, and consideration, as we are all kind of going through a rite of passage whenever Pluto is on the cusp of any sign. It's a societal and collective rite of passage. There's some kind of transformation or some kind of shift happening at a global level. And the sort of final element of that is probably happening here, as we also have Neptune on a cusp as well. Which also deals with rites of passage in the sign of Pisces. It's in the 29th degree of Pisces. And yes, we will have Pluto moving to the 29th degree of Capricorn. So we're going to have anaretic Pluto-Neptune sextiles happening for the rest of 2024, which is such a poetic and deeply gravitationally powerful transit that for a lot of people might not be realized in a conscious way, but something in the unseen world is happening. If you guys want me to make videos later this year about the sextiles happening between Pluto and Neptune, comment below, and I'll be sure to put that on the list. In this video, I'm just going to be focusing more on Pluto itself, but I'm sure that some of the messages coming through will be spun in that direction as well. Okay, you all, I'm just going to take some time. I have an outline, but I'm wanting to speak just intuitively about this transit before I get into that. So I'm just taking some time to understand. Okay, so that's it. I mean, that's it in a nutshell, you all, is taking time to understand, as we don't just have the most immediate realizations here. We are dealing with the diamonds that pressure has created. With this transit, we are dealing with aspects of ourselves that have been planted since 2008. That was when Pluto went into Capricorn. And in some way, some type of journey or some type of series of struggles as well, some type of trauma or painful event that you might have been either coping with, going through, or navigating since 2008 will be in its finality here. So this is a period of time where very long-running relationships can be finishing. Also with Neptune in the very final degree, not only of Pisces, but the final degree of the zodiac, at the same time as Pluto being in the final degree of Capricorn. Good Lord. You all, it's just like old stories, okay? It's very, very long-running, even multiple lifetime stories or multiple relationship stories. Like in every single relationship, I've had this kind of abuse, and now I am stepping out for the very final time in my life through this ending, and I will never have that again. There are things, you all, that we will never have again after the time of this transit. So we need to be very deliberate about how we channel this quote-unquote never again energy, because working with a word like never, or never again, or finality, totality, the death archetype, conclusions, endings, sometimes that can be very empowering and romantic, but there are other things that we don't necessarily want to end as well. Life, I feel, is the most important thing for us to focus on, and understanding perhaps what constructs, impediments, or relationships in our life might be like narrowing or condensing our life force energy. For example, I have a very oppressive job that takes away all of my energy and provides a paycheck. This would be something that might have to end during this type of transit, as the anaretic degree of Capricorn deals with oppression, suppression, and bearing down, like some type of overpowered entity or group or business or something that's like really bearing down. And it is kind of like also not capable to do it for much longer. So a lot of people have realizations during a transit like this that, okay, I have been bared down on too much, either by this marriage, this job, this story in my life, and this is the last time. You know, I've put in my notice, this is the last paycheck I'm getting from this job. It's over. I'm going to reinvent myself. It's wonderful to think about how we can reinvent ourselves, though this may not be immediate right now. This could be waiting until 2026 when we get the Saturn and Neptune in Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, right? But I feel that between now and 2026, we start to enter into this kind of like liminal space. I'm going to be making a video about this liminal spaces and transition zones and bridges. We're definitely in one of those between about 2022 and 2026 as the old and outworn finalizes itself and we begin to understand who we are after all of that has concluded. So now that we're kind of in a liminal space with Pluto retrograde in the anaretic degree of Capricorn, once more, we have to understand what is outworn and what is outdated, also things that just don't harmonize with us anymore. There should be a wonderful chance for macrocosmic harmony with the Neptune sextile Pluto in Capricorn, as it feels like the poetry and the romance and the artistry of our lives will begin to naturally channel through. But is there life force energy to meet it halfway and conceive a greater version or a greater persona or just a greater honesty of who we truly are at our deepest level? Because also what we're dealing with here is extreme levels of dishonesty and trickery, okay? We have a lot of transits starting up in June of 2024 that deal with two-facedness, deception, trickery. Jupiter in Gemini. Gemini can be that way in more of a playful way, sometimes not playful, but most of the time playful. And then I also feel that Saturn and Neptune in Pisces can be that way too, but it's more of a deeper, purposeful energy of deception. The anaretic degree of Capricorn can also be like that too. It's like continuing to keep up appearances, or, you know, maybe the business is really struggling, but we're going to make it look like it's still doing good to keep things functional, you know. So there are a lot of transits happening right now, I feel, that indicates some type of tricky energy, but the thing is I feel it to be very painful to participate in. So it's not that it's unsuccessful, but I feel that a lot of falsity and a lot of egocentrism as well, which is the same thing. It's just so painful to participate in it because it's like, where is the energy for all of these egos? Where is the energy for all of the sort of, how can I explain? For all of the connection with things that are not happening in a natural way. So like unnatural connecting points, unnatural businesses, unnatural activity requires some kind of source of energy that people don't actually understand. So I see a lot of foolish people during this time. I see a lot of people trying to capitalize on some type of energy that they don't understand. They can't see it, but maybe they feel it. So it's a very prevalent time for spiritual warfare. It's a very prevalent time also for people experimenting, for example, with new religions, new spiritual practices, new kinds of ritual that they don't know, that are maybe not ancestrally relevant to them. And, I can't prescribe any universal outcome for that, but I do feel that it would be a lot more appropriate during this time to really get into the physical of your space, because we've got so much mysticism right now. We've got so much happening in the unseen spiritual plane that I feel that a lot of us have to offset it with getting into a more materially aware space. So making sure that our housing is right, making sure also that we have the privacy that we need in our lives, making sure also that desperation, okay? So through the never-ending rent game, through the never-ending urbane paycheck to paycheck lifestyle game, sometimes we're not really living a real life in those spaces, in those economic spaces, because the motivation behind our activity can kind of be like a hamster on a wheel, like it just has to do what it has to do to keep all of that going. So one of the most powerful things that people can do during this time is overcome some type of major long-running difficulty like that, like forever I've been in the rent game, or forever I've been in a paycheck to paycheck mentality. And well, now maybe I live in a different country now, and there is a different type of economic construct where I don't have to be that way anymore. Or maybe I have my own business now, or maybe I just walked away from that entire construct, or maybe I stopped participating in rituals I didn't understand. Maybe I stopped giving people power over me and losing sleep over it, being in that kind of Nine of Swords headspace. I'm seeing a lot of power right now, you all, during this transit. I'm seeing so much power in, I kind of just walked away from that oppression, or I just stepped away, and I had maybe some type of narrative going in my head that I didn't have any choice but to be there. But now I'm walking away from that, and I'm maybe withdrawing or canceling out also a lot of my own ego that was perhaps reliant on some type of narrative of being chained to something. It's like the devil archetype. It's a very dark and difficult right now. It's something that requires a lot of prayer and a lot of trust in a higher unseen force to disconnect and break away from. So disconnection, breaking away, really stepping away from, in some people's cases, like idolizing monetary, material stuff, idolizing some type of story as well. It's not even, you see, that this is very difficult to paint in a clear material way, because I'm seeing that a lot of people have a very collective idolizing going on, but it's happening maybe about their narrative or their story, or it's happening in regards to something that they already understand, and it's not maybe permitting enough energy to what is not understood, or to possibilities in areas even that we've not been to yet. So this is what I want to introduce to you guys. I hope that this is making sense. Is there some element of your story that you haven't experienced yet, or an area that you've not been to, or perhaps something out of your control that might offer you more than all of this kind of perceptible, ancient, fleshy stuff, like things that deal with the body and the world, and not so much the spirit and the divine? There should be some type of divine concept, or some kind of divine relationship with divinity that should be a higher priority. And I absolutely see how some people have to, for example, step into a materialistic kind of formula, like, okay, I have to buy my house, that way I can get out of the rent game, that way I can be more engaged on my spiritual journey, or okay, I have to leave the city, or I have to have plans about, certain things happening, and maybe not be so dependent on fiat supply chains and, banking systems and things like that. Although who can really talk at this point? It's kind of hard to even consider not having reliances in these territories, especially for people in the West. However, maybe it's important to start mixing things up a little bit, or starting to have new relationships, starting to have more maybe decentralization in your own life. Careful about stacking all of your energy into one box, for example. And I feel that this retrograde Pluto in Capricorn, with a lot of the other transits happening, it's going to maybe give us like one more focused story on things like this. And quite quickly, we're going to need, in some cases, a power play. I'm seeing some people having to like make their boundaries more clear. Maybe people are encroaching on your boundaries. Maybe people are, like, for example, if you have resources or if you have done well materially, it'd be very easy to have like vultures flying around, for example, and trying to maybe profit off of that. Yes, the energy is quite Machiavellian here, and I'm seeing a lot of dark triad narcissist types of stories coming through. And for this reason, it's going to be very important to have certain private securities, to have certain also deep inner knowings and detachment from materialism too, as to not stoke that in our own lives. So you see how there's kind of like a balance working, and you see the South Node in Libra here too, where it's like you can't be totally off of the material stuff, like you can't be oblivious to it, but at the same time you can't lean too much into it because it gets really crazy and disordered after a certain point. Also, I feel, if you want to be super ahead of the curve with this transit, what I have written down is explicit correctness. Okay, let's talk about that. Explicit correctness. Doing things correctly, all right? Not being underhanded, not being very scheming, not being... because it really shows, okay? People really see it, people really feel it. If there's any type of like pandering or obsequiousness, if there is also an attempt to change things in unnatural ways, it's quite easy to lose face with this transit as well. So it's very important to be correct. It's very important that any changes that you're making or any... it's important that any power that one is using be used very responsibly and correctly, because it's also a period of time where people have like the last bit of power that they will have because things have been mismanaged so much, or because they were not using it in a way that was beneficial to other people. So whenever Pluto's at the last degree of a sign, it does also indicate that there is a passing of a baton, which we'll also be starting to see happening here, but it won't be quite obvious actually until we get quite far into 2025, how that has all changed. And for people who are on the other side of that baton, so people who don't yet have power, or people who are perhaps in succession, for example, in any type of way, this is a very important time of making things right. Okay, if you, for example, have a larger goal, so I want to be very wide, I want to apply very widely this metaphor of passing some type of baton. Try to not limit this too much to just like material stuff, but like thinking about, okay, someday I know that I have this purpose, that I'm going to perhaps be granted some type of authority or be granted some kind of capacity with which to fulfill something. Do the things that I'm doing right now harmonize with that type of assertion or that type of plan? This is maybe the hardest question that this time is really actually starting to ask us very clearly. And there's absolutely some element, and this can be so shadowy, but it's not always shadowy, but there's absolutely some element of like persona building or face building or some kind of choices that are made now that make more sense in the future than they make right now. Think about this, you all. This is food for thought. This is like high strategy. This is high thoughtfulness, and we don't want to send it into future tripping. We don't want to become, ungrounded from the present. But the people who are at the cutting edge right now, there is an explicit correctness about what they're doing. There is a lot of thoughtfulness, but not a loss of sleep, not a fear, but thoughtfulness about how the current actions are harmonizing with the future capacity. There is also a lot of surplus as well. Of something. There is some type of surplus, like maybe it's a lot of time on your side, maybe, and you might have to think poetically about this too, like, wow, I've lost all my friends, or I don't have a lot of connections, but wow, I have a surplus of free time to develop skills. That's a surplus too. It's not so simple as just like, a hugely profitable business that has a huge surplus of money, or it can be that too, or also like, wow, a surplus of houses, or a surplus of unexpected inheritance that's happening for people here as well. Pivotal changes that indicate some type of surplus. Also, if it's the best possible thing is like a surplus of health, a surplus of endocrine functionality. If you're someone in the Western world whose thyroid works right now, or whose adrenal system works right, or whose even like urinary tract system and digestive system works right, and you're cancer free, and you've got a general feeling of like good genetics, and even if it's just that is an incredible surplus during this time. It's very hard, actually in the entire globe, but especially because, in non-Western areas, it can be hunger, or it can be, other types of ailments as well. But it's a rare person right now who is functioning healthily, just at the body. So that can really pay dividends here too, having a healthy bodily system, and a surplus of sleep, a surplus of rest. You guys, it feels like a toned down summer to me, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, but even like a toned down winter if you're in the Southern Hemisphere as well. It feels like we need extra time. It feels like it's not so bad to engage in hobbies, to kind of like partake in crafting new skills, not in a super militant way, but in more of a leisurely way, but with method, not just when you're bored, balanced development of new skills, because in the future I realize that this is going to really pay a dividend, and maybe it doesn't make sense right now. It's like someone starts taking foreign language classes who's never learned a foreign language, and people around them are like, why are they doing that? Like that, they don't need that in their lives. But little do they know, in the future this person could be a diplomat or something. But that's the other thing. People are not going to understand your future goals here. Move in silence, I would definitely recommend here, because it's easy to get psyched out during this time too. It's easy to see people like totally not understand why you're doing what you're doing, and especially when it comes to new skills. This is such a tricky period of time. It's like kind of funny to me, actually, because in some way there has to be long-running function, right? With the late Pluto in Capricorn and the late Neptune in Pisces, the wood dragon year, there has to be something that has been functioning methodically for a long time, operating as a foundation. There also seems to have to be something totally new that is kind of like being developed bit by bit, and maybe people know about it and maybe people don't. There also has to be a lot of privacy and rest. So we can't burn ourselves out with it either by like working the old job and learning something new. A lot of people would get burned out by doing both of those things. Burnout is not an option in the 2024 year cycle. So we have to have this privacy and recovery and rest. And it feels like we also have to be very safe, like with like insurance, like things have to be insured. We have to, for some people, like the whole apartment living thing has to come to an end, and they have to like have their own houses now, and like they have to have their own four walls, like not sharing walls with people. That has to end for some people here. Very positive if you are seeing like something like that is ending for you. If it's not, don't freak yourself out, but kind of maybe consider how that could happen. At the same time, people have to be very knowledgeable, and they have to not be in all or nothing mentalities either. Like, I'm going to totally estrange my family, or I'm just going to only be with my family and never meet new people in my life. There has to be some type of in between. I still have my family, but I'm also connecting with new people. I have my old business, but I'm also starting to develop some new skills too, because I'm not quite sure. That's very important here. I have things, insured in my life, and I have stable housing, and I have privacy and recovery, but I'm also not spending all of my paycheck on that stuff either. You see how much this period of time demands mastery and demands balance and demands really just a sage or a masterful person to actually come through with what it's trying to give, which is the eventual passing of some kind of baton or some type of major generational curse broken, some kind of economic wound broken, some kind of chronic illness healed, some kind of puzzle solved, okay, is what Pluto and Capricorn ultimately should be providing for those people who are achieving this mastery. And, don't be too perfectionistic with yourself. If what I've just listed feels like impossible, it probably would feel impossible to pretty much everyone. Just try to move what you can in your life to match that a little bit more. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be, again, extreme. Watch out for the extreme motions during this time. It's easy to get a bad reputation for being too extreme as a person, or for being too fringe, or too much like loud, also political jargon. It is not a matter of right or wrong. It's just a matter of it being, for most people, quite the loss of face during this time, or at least in the future. Finally, everyone, I feel that there is some type of final showdown happening here, and spiritual protection is very important. So it's great to be praying. It's great to be keeping your house very safe, and certainly doing this all in a mystical way is wonderful, but taking real material actions that support it. Like, for example, I don't share the keys to my house anymore, or there are certain people that are not going to be coming into my house now. There are certain also types of food that are not going to be coming into my house now. There are certain chemical cleaning agents that may not come into my house now. These are all ways that we match our auric protection in the physical, because of course, again, Capricorn is a very physical sign, so Pluto is a very mystical and energy-oriented planet, so we have that sort of merging of the physical and the mystical very, very prevalent right now. It may also be good to get more sunlight during this time and to be more diurnal to offset the major nocturnal energy of all of these transits that we're having pretty much. Something might be needing to come out of the shade either now or quite soon. And it could be that some people have too much darkness operating in their life, or too much yin, as 2023, for example, was a heavily yin imbalanced year, very much a dark imbalance. So I don't feel that it's quite as bad in 2024, but it's still trying to correct itself, and it's still quite yin dominated. Even though Jupiter changing sign has changed that up a little bit, Gemini season is changing that up. Once we hit Cancer again, though, it's going to be kind of like feeling yin dominated once more. And finally, everyone, there should be less fear or less grief over things leaving our lives here, as of course, whenever Pluto leaves a sign for the final time, there are going to be a lot of customs that we maybe don't have anymore, especially maybe some that you've had since 2008 or 2011, 2012-ish. A lot of things that have been going kind of cyclically since then may now need to be cut out, or may need to be left in the past. Habits, addictions, certain grids of comfort and time passing may no longer be relevant at all. So it's like, because I was so out of place in my life, I developed, the habit of drinking coffee, or because I was so bored or so kind of isolated in my life, I started listening to really loud headphone music or something. And you could see that these things have basically become like constructs, and now maybe all of that has to be cut out. And maybe it's not, again, like all or nothing mentality necessarily, but you should see maybe that some long-running things in your life might be leaving, and that could actually be a great opportunity for doing what you actually have full capacity to do now, which you may not realize that you have the capacity to kind of do what these other coping mechanisms were covering up the previous lack of capacity to do. So on that note, everyone, check out the description box below. Come see me on Patreon. I do weekly forecasts every week talking about the week ahead. I do monthly sign by signs. Come check out the June readings. They're so good. You can get all the signs. They were long this month. I think the Scorpio reading was like 30 minutes long. Come check that out. We talked through so many different possibilities for this time, and it's just going to be a very relaxed, healing, laid-back vibe this summer on YouTube and on Patreon. So I hope that you guys will come to both. This channel is also on Discord. The community talks over there. I'll link it below. But yes, YouTube, Patreon. I have an ebook called Moon Symbols on Amazon if you wanted to learn about your moon sign. And yeah, it's just, it's easy, it's tranquil, it's laid back, it's healing, rejuvenating, psychic, and progressive. Okay, I feel what we're putting together right now. And yes, later this year, I'm excited to really be pushing with some more exciting content, but and videos will be posting on YouTube all throughout this summer. So keep subscribed with the bell notifications turned on. But yes, I'm feeling called to be more restorative here and to not like really push things too hard. But I think that really works with this type of content too. So thank you all so much. And again, come see me on Patreon. Much love. Bye.